Forged in Idaho, once again. I'm here with Isaiah Taylor with Valar Atomics.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I'm excited.
So you are a self-taught engineer.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Mostly reading, although reading has limited utility. So you have to read and then you have to do stuff. So that was essentially the cycle. Read things, do things, read things, do things. And I've always found that doing things teaches you what you don't know really quickly, because you run into a brick wall and then you're like, how do I get over this wall? And that teaches you how to, rappel. If I can extend the analogy, it teaches you how to rappel, something like that. And that was originally in software. And then it kind of got into various pieces of hardware and working in cars and that sort of thing. So I really only found one style of learning things, and that's doing things on a small scale as fast as I can to reveal the gaps. So that's really what I've done.
Okay. And it obviously worked, because now you are the CEO of Valar Atomics. What do you do with that?
So Valar Atomics is focused on making the world's energy. So there's a lot of energy needed in the world. And that's always been true about humans. Humans have always needed energy. We used to get it pretty much entirely from the sun, right? So if you rewind 500 years ago, actually more than that, a long time ago, we got all of our energy from the sun. So we were eating food, and that food was essentially using solar power through photosynthesis to create chemical energy. And then we'd eat the chemical energy and our body would metabolize it. And then you have energy to work with your hands. So humanity was essentially solar powered. When the Industrial Revolution happened, and even somewhat before that, we started using coal, right? So coal is sort of stored chemical energy from the sun. So you got plants, the plants get compacted and they get reduced down into coal, but you're still essentially powered by solar. And then we discovered liquid hydrocarbons, right? So coal is a hydrocarbon. It's a solid form, and then we discovered liquid hydrocarbons. That's gas, and that transition really created the modern world. Right. So everything, if you look around us today, is a product of hydrocarbons, either through the energy, right, the lights, and even just common materials. Like I'm sure this carpet is made out of polyester. Sorry if I'm offending your extremely expensive wool rug here, but pretty certainly that's made of oil and gas, right? That case right there that carries the cameras are made of oil and gas. So it's created the modern world. And Valor is about taking the next step. And I believe that the next step is nuclear. And the reason for that is that energy should always get cheaper over time, right? If you look back in any 50 to 100 year period, you should see humanity unlocking another level of lower and lower and lower cost energy. And the reason for that is that energy is fundamentally our leverage on the world, right? The reason we can make steel is because we had a lot of energy in coal to melt iron, right? The reason that we can have lights is because we have energy to push energy through a resistor. So that's extremely important. And I think it's very important, not just that we have energy, we have lots of it, but that it gets cheaper. And the way I look at it today is that oil and gas has taken us to this incredible point, but it's hard to imagine it getting 10 times cheaper than it is today. You could see it getting a little bit cheaper with OPEC and drilling around and various things, but it's probably not going to get 10 times cheaper. And nuclear can. So that's really what Valor is about. So we're building nuclear reactors. Our style of building nuclear reactors is pretty unique. We build them small, and we build them quickly, and we build them very safe. And this is in contrast to the old way of building nuclear, which is building them big and building them slow. And I wouldn't say dangerous. Nuclear is actually the safest form of power generation, even old nuclear. But we make them even safer. We can kind of take that next step to make them even safer. So really fast, really small, really safe. And we believe that will lead to making the cheapest energy in the world.
So, when you talk in terms of what you're up to, I mean, it's a profound step you're taking to solve a problem. You're trying to solve a problem. You see the problem and you've educated yourself on it. What kind of advice do you have for people in how they're growing up and they're able to, I think I want to solve this problem or that problem.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel like they need to go to college to do that. And you didn't go to college at all.
No.
And we've talked a lot.
I went to NSA for 2 months, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So full disclosure.
Yeah.
I
think it was about 2 months.
Yeah. No degree in engineering.
Yep.
And you're able to solve the problems of your neighbor.
Yes.
In despite that. Obviously college is a necessary thing.
Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have to young men who are interested in entering the trades? I'm always talking to them.
Yeah.
And your story is probably the most extravagant example of
Yeah.
what you can accomplish.
So the first thing I'll say is that there's a whole category of things you probably just don't need college for at all, right? And then there's a separate category of things that like definitely some people need to go to college at least, right? So you probably, we have a lot of people on our team that have incredible degrees from the best institutions, and there's like a slice of those people that are extremely necessary. But most of like the work that gets done in the world is done by people who have learned by experience, right? And college actually doesn't give you experience. Even the best technical programs do not give you the contact with reality that teaches you the real lessons. And that actually is the most valuable thing. Now, there's some work that's sensitive enough that you need both extremely high degree of training and high degree of experience. So a nuclear PhD, right? We have nuclear PhDs who have really, really studied in depth for many, many years in a institutional setting, like how do neutrons actually fly around in a nuclear core, right? And that's something that probably makes sense to go to school for. But there's this separate class of work and activity, which I would say is the major chunk, which is people who have learned by experience. And so it's not that college is not important or you shouldn't do it. It's that it's not where most of the value is going to come from. Most of the value that you can give to other people is your experience. And so you really want to just get experience. And that's kind of what I focused on. I wanted to get experience as soon as I possibly could. And that's really the thing that motivated me to drop out of high school, is that I saw that I could immediately start getting experience. I taught myself software engineering and I got a job offer. And I was like, well, I could go to school and I could hear professors kind of talk to me about how software is written, or I could go immediately jump in and start trying to figure this out and get paid to do it, which is nice. And I was like, I bet that will teach me more about the actual problems than the professor could. And I think that was generally true. And that's kind of the path that I've followed for each of the things that I've done.
It's fun to hear you talk in these terms, because that's the same refrain that we would hear from anybody who enters the trades, right? Like the experience. You can read the books and learn the things and know the Simpson manual if you want to memorize that backwards and forwards, but really, can you actually build the thing? And now you're there in the arena of nuclear reactors, and you're building the thing.
Yep.
What are the risks that you're taking in doing that?
In building nuclear reactors?
Yeah, talk to people as far as what you're up to and why you're confident in doing it.
Yes, nuclear is definitely up there in terms of risk, right? It's a highly permanent, highly radioactive activity, right? Where you're going to produce physical material in the natural world that wouldn't have otherwise existed. And that material will last for thousands of years, right? So there's a high bar of like, know what you're doing, right? And the way that we do that is that we try to hire people who've done it before, who do know what they're doing. And I would say we hired like two types of people. We hire, young guys straight out of college who are eager to work really, really hard and have demonstrated that they're willing to work very hard. And then we hire, old guys who have done it forever and they know this stuff like the back of their hand. And then we put them together and we find out that's a really good mix, right? Young guys who are willing to like stay up all night long and work on the thing. And then the older guys who have, did that when they were 20 and now are like deeply experienced. All of the like really, really hard lessons of Valor come from actually doing it, right? So at Valor, we point out that you can't actually get to the nuts and bolts of a problem without nuts and bolts, right? The actual nuts and bolts themselves is not just a phrase. Like you will learn things about the nuts and about the bolts and about the gaskets and about the pumps and the valves. And all of this is very, very much based on experience. And it's not even something that you can attack at the design phase, even if you're in detailed design. Like you have a really detailed design for how this reactor comes together, but then you actually have to procure a part from a vendor. And then you learn something there. You learn like that vendor delivers on time and this one doesn't. And you learn that this one actually comes back as the spec sheet says and this one does not. And then you learn that even if it all comes together as the spec sheet says, your design actually was incorrect in this really subtle way. And so you learn really, really quickly. So we prioritize contacting reality as soon as possible. And then the way that we deal with risk is that we contact reality in a small scope, right? So we don't try to boil the ocean all at once. We move very quickly to contact reality in a really small area that allows us to like fully understand it. And then we get to the next step, the next step, the next step. So, I think that's really important, especially if you're trying to learn something. You should pick something that you can do completely, that's small enough that you can actually do, although it should feel a little bit impossible. Like, it should feel a tiny bit impossible.
Yeah.
But it's small enough that like you can do it fully and you can get that experience.
You're talking in terms of your people and your systems in the terms of trust. Like, you're
Yeah.
trying to build trust in your system and in your people.
Yeah.
And it seems like that would be the greatest commodity
Mm.
that you can have in a team is trust. And I
Yes.
think we know that. Like,
Yes.
it's a known thing. Talk about that. Like, we're in a society that really doesn't trust anything. How does a young man get started in a team like that and build trust?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is you need to prove that you are there for the fight, right? So there's trust in skill, there's trust in like the basics of, you're not going to be leaking information or like doing things that are, that are wrong. That's sort of like, I think, par for the course. And also you will have to demonstrate that through time. There's really no other way to demonstrate that except through time. But the biggest thing that I think is missing is like trust that you are there for the fight, right? Like, you're in the foxhole. That I think is one place that young men actually can bring massive value immediately, right? Because if you're like 25 or 20 or 19, the one thing you've got on your side is that like you can sleep for 2 hours and be fine, and that's like not true of anybody else. And so that's something that you can like immediately bring to the table and show that you're in the foxhole. And over time, you will get more and more of the other types of responsibilities, right? The are you trustworthy is sort of like this future question, which will constantly be asked you and you'll be able to prove. But the first thing you could prove is like, I'm here in the foxhole. I'm ready to fight.
How does how do you there's lot of talking about the next generation, right? Every generation loves to complain about the coming generation and how hard it is to find young men that are in the fight.
Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have for, you're building a team
Yep.
successfully. What advice do you have for people who are building teams and also who are looking to join teams as far as ways to foster this? I mean, we could talk about video games. Like, is that a part of fostering that desire to get in the fight?
Well, I think video games are what young men is fundamentally want to do. Like, and I think that's actually a good thing. Like, young men want to play video games. But the fact is, like, life is a video game, right? So video games are attractive because it's exactly like what you want to do. You want to be doing something competitive. You want to be just doing something that pushes your skills, that allows you to learn, that allows you to work with the team, that allows you to win, right? And that's like exactly what life is too. And so if your company is not like a video game, young men are probably not going to want to join it. So this is not to say that you should have like scorecards and like those are actually not what people are interested in video games. They're interested in the camaraderie, the fact that it's very hard, right? Like, and you lose over and over. I'm a big Counter-Strike guy. I love playing Counter-Strike. And that game is really hard. Like, you will get destroyed over and over and over by people who are ranked higher than you. And that keeps you coming back because you're like, I want to win next time. And so if you're wanting to build people, if you're wanting to build a team that has young guys coming into it, this should be like more fun than Call of Duty, right? And that sounds silly, but actually it's a high bar, right? Because you get to fight and you get to be on a team and you get to win and all these things. And so at your company, you need to be able to fight and be on a team and win. And that is going to be more compelling over time. But if your company's not like that, if it's like, you're not really going to be on a very cool team with other people who are trying to win, and it's not really that hard, it doesn't really push you, and at the end of the day, there's not really a clear sign of victory, that is unvideo game-like and probably won't work.
Yeah, it's honestly, I feel like I have it easy because I mean, we're tradesmen.
Yeah.
We walk away every day
Yeah,
with a win.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
can see what got done.
Or with an L, right? And like sometimes the L's are even more powerful than the W's because you get this like chip on your shoulder. It's like, next time we're gonna win. If it's only dubs, like, you lose interest in the game, right?
Yeah. So there's there's a huge gulf between a guy just framing a house and someone building a nuclear reactor. But it seems like we've kind of established that the concepts are the same.
There's
Let's-
not that big of a gap.
Okay, let's
So
riff on this.
This is probably something that's really unique about Valar. When I started the company, I had zero nuclear experience, right? I had never built a reactor before. I'd never been on a team that built a nuclear reactor before. My only context on it was history, and I was very familiar with the history. And the reason for that is that my great-grandfather was on the Manhattan Project. He was at Oak Ridge, where the first couple of reactors were built. And I have all of these old photos. And the thing that you always notice about the old photos is that it's just dudes with hammers making things, right? Like that's actually what building a nuclear reactor is. It's like you've got a lathe and you've got a mill and you're bending some steel and you're welding some stuff. And that's actually the important part. There is design, there is the PhD level analysis. There's, very, very complicated things about a nuclear reactor that you have to get right. But the thing that actually matters at the end of the day is, does the steel get bent? Does the seam get welded? Does it hold pressure? Right. And those are things that we haven't been doing actually for a long time in the United States. We haven't been doing them very well. And it's very similar across all of the trades. Like I think in the trades, you like live or die by the last weld that you did. Right. And if it was no good, that's bad. And it's not to say that there's like zero tolerance for error. You inspect and you do QA and these sorts of things to catch errors. But over the course of your days and your weeks and your month, like you're directly finding out whether or not you're succeeding based on the things that you're doing with your hands. And I think that's extremely valuable. And it's something that we have been missing in American society for the last 30 years. We sort of switched to this software-based society or services-based society, and we're doing less physical building. And a huge part of what Valar is doing is that we're bringing the physical building back into the forefront. When we developed our nuclear team, we had a couple of extremely smart nuclear PhDs, but the rest of the team were just people who know how to bend steel, right? People who know how to design a part and then put it on the mill and CNC it and put it together and test it. And I think that's actually the reason that Valar is really charging ahead right now, is because we focused on that over everything else.
So, AI's here and coming. There's a lot of talk of like what jobs are going to be left. And I think sometimes it's very ominous, and I think it's honestly really exciting.
Yeah.
What is the best path to follow for getting in and getting things done as a tradesman?
Yeah.
Between you and the consumer who consumes the power, what are the exciting places to go?
Okay, I'm going to give you a more general answer than what you just asked, because I think that it's the answer that I could give you there is going to be like the same as everywhere else. And the answer is that you should look at how do we build things and then make sure that you're helping that. And building a nuclear reactor is similar to building a car, similar to building a house, similar to building an iPhone. And I think that the economy itself is really just, are you building stuff or not? Right? I think we can make economics really simple. Like forget monetary theory and forget like interest rates and all this garbage. It's like, is the country building stuff or not? That is the actual important thing in economics. And so you need to figure out, how are things built today, and get good at that. And by the way, that might be accounting. It very well might be accounting, but even if you're an accountant, the reason that you are an accountant is because you're going to help something get built, right? That's where value comes from. All of value just comes from building things. And maybe what you're building is a farm, or maybe what you're building is a coffee shop or a nuclear reactor, but building things is where value comes from. So if you're a young man and you're trying to figure out, how do I make sure that I'm providing for my family, right? Which is kind of the first thing that the guys think about, which makes sense because, you got checks bouncing and rent is due and all these sorts of things. You're like, how do I fix this problem? Like, you're going to fix that problem through money, obviously. But the way that you fix that problem through money is to do things that are valuable. And the thing that is valuable is building. And so look at how things are built. So we went back to AI. I think AI is like a little bit of a distraction, because if AI is going to be useful, it's going to be useful in that it helps us build things, right? AI is not the thing to be built. It is something that may help us build. So the right thing to do might be getting really, really good at AI, right? That's certainly possible if you think that's going to help us build nuclear reactors in the future. Now, I happen to think that AI is probably not that useful to helping us build reactors. It might be helpful to, helping us build insurance companies or, help doing other things. But I think the direct path today for what the United States needs to do in the next 50 years is get better at building things. What are the direct paths there? Well, it's engineering, it's construction, it's figuring out how to manipulate physical matter into the right order to produce value, right? And that order might be a car or a bus or a plane or a nuclear reactor.
Yeah, it really is, a refreshing thing, I think, for a young man to realize, as long as I'm willing to sweat and suffer a little bit,
Yeah.
I can be successful.
Yeah.
And I think our parents in their generation, they kind of had a really hard go because they're like, if you don't go to college, you're never going to make it.
Yeah.
That was what they were told, and I feel a lot of sympathy for that because, man, it seems like a lot of kids these days are saddled with the guilt of
Yep.
needing to go to college.
Yep.
And I think we can offer them just a refreshing, well, maybe, but really just go be fruitful.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're as Christians, how big of a role do we have in what we're up to as far as taking dominion of the world and producing things with it?
Yeah. And I would just say that maybe going to college is the right thing, but you have to decide for yourself, is going to college going to help me either help me build things or help me help somebody build things, right? Those are really the only two economic activities. It's like building things or helping people build things. Accounting is a good example of helping people build things. You can't run a construction company without accounting. So an accounting degree, if you think that is the right way for you to help somebody build something, then you should do that. And accounting is probably a good idea to at least do some sort of schooling. Hopefully don't go into debt for that. You don't have to go to like the best accounting school in the world because accounting is there's a book for it, right? On the flip side, if you think that actually I've got a good knack for like analysis and like structural analysis, and I know how to do all that math really well, might be a good idea actually go to college and fine tune that skill to get to the point where you can do the best analysis in the world. Why? Because that's going to help somebody build something. On the flip side, if you have a really good idea of what to build already, and you're like, you know what, I think that thing needs to be built, then college is maybe not the right thing because there's other people who have been to college. And at the end of the day, the thing that's important is for you to go take those people, hire the team, and then go build that thing together. That's really what I did, right? It was pretty obvious to me that we need to build nuclear reactors. And if I had gone to college, which I could have done right for 6 years, 8 years, or however long it would have taken me to do that, I would have not been focusing on the really important part, which was how do I get the right people around me who are going to go build that reactor together. So this is this is very general advice trying to cover like a bunch of different pathways, but I think the gold standard and the thing to keep in your head is, am I either building something or helping somebody build something? And that's what should guide your path.
So then as a Christian, like, why should we be the best at that?
Well, because the builders are in charge, right? The people who build a society are in charge of their society. And who do you want to be in charge, right? I want us to be in charge. When we're in charge, better things happen. And, that is the Dominion mandate, right? I think it's interesting that Dominion comes with, subduing the earth comes with filling it, right? Those are like two parts of the same thing. You don't get to subdue the earth, which is Dominion, without also filling it. You don't get to just sort of be like the guy who's in charge and you don't build anything. It's like the building it and the filling the earth is what gives you the authority. And I think that's really, really obvious. Like if you look at what's happening in American politics today, software guys, like Silicon Valley guys, like kind of run things now, right? If you look at like who's in positions of power, they worked at like a software company 10 years ago, like a Silicon Valley software company, or they worked at a VC firm, or they worked, in one of the big companies that's been successful. And that's very natural. That makes sense, right? They built a lot of the economy, and so they run it, right? And the authority and the building go together.
What about the aspect of the cheerfulness with which we look at the world around us? Where you're solving a problem with joy and excitement.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's a very prevalent thing, in a in our society. We're kind of just reacting
Yep.
and trying to fix problems.
Yep.
And you're literally trying to say, no, let's go build something. It's almost like the modern cathedral,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't build cathedrals.
Yep.
What is our cathedral for this day and age?
Yeah. I mean, I think you could argue that the Apollo landings were like a cathedral. You could argue that the internet is like a cathedral, right? There are massively complicated, beautiful, difficult works, that mankind has done in the last 50 years. Now, those cathedrals may or may not be used for the right thing anymore, right? I think Apollo was. I think that going to the moon and reading Genesis as mankind orbited the moon for the first time was like an excellent example of that. Buzz Aldrin taking communion on the surface of the moon, the first time that humans ever landed on the moon. I think that's like a fantastic example. But I think like fundamentally building things is like what we're here for, right? Like that's the whole point. And you're building families and you're building things in the world. And both of those glorify God. You could say glorify God in that you're obeying him, but there's an even more fundamental aspect of glorifying God. It's like glorifying God how a hummingbird does, right? A hummingbird glorifies God by like being really good at zipping around and sipping flowers, right? And humans are really good at glorifying God by building amazing things. And I think that you can look at some of the things that our forefathers did before us, and you see them and you look at them and they're so beautiful. And that is glorifying to God that his creatures do that in the world.
So what does Valor look like over the next 5 years? Like what's your plan, and how is that going to affect everyday America and obviously beyond?
We want to make energy a lot cheaper. It's going to take more than 5 years. In 5 years, we'll be well down the path making many reactors. In order for us to do our true mission, this is going to take our entire lives. And that's going to be worthwhile. But we want to make energy a lot cheaper. Energy being at a price sounds like an accounting figure. It sounds like a number, but it's actually incredibly important. To have energy cheaper or more expensive is highly determinant to how your society works and how your economy works. So an example of this, the United States invented aluminum electrolysis. So Charles Hall invented the concept of taking bauxite out of the ground, processing it into alumina, and then electrolyzing alumina into aluminum. So that's how we made lots of aluminum. It's extremely important for producing aircraft. It's how we won World War II. Really, really important thing. And we basically owned the production of aluminum for a long time. Today, China makes about 90% of global aluminum. And then there's a couple others, and the United States is not even on the list. And you ask, why did that happen? And the essential reason that it happened is that our energy got a few cents more expensive. And if it goes a few cents more expensive, it's suddenly no longer economical to electrolyze aluminum anymore. Why did it get more expensive? Well, A, because we stopped building plants. We stopped building plants for a few reasons. One is environmental regulations, and we can talk about that later. But the essential answer is like our energy got more expensive. And that's true across the board for all of these interesting things you wouldn't think about. Another example of this is like, if you walk around your house and you look at the appliances that you have in your house, most of them are pretty bad. Like most appliances don't work that well. Your dishwasher is kind of annoying, right? Like think about what a dishwasher is and what it was like 30 years ago or 40 years ago. They're not that different, right? They just kind of like spray water in your dishes and they break a lot. And, you would think that 40 years later, computing went from, this massive room that can only do a few equations to like a supercomputer in your pocket. But dishwashers have basically like stayed the same. And I actually think there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is that appliances in your house are basically like energy optimization machines. That's really all they're doing, is they're like trying to figure out how to do the minimum of cleaning your dishes without using too much water or without using too much electricity. And I think this is like a really bad sickness that's like infected how we think about technology in the United States. So much of our technology is really just like trying to be more energy efficient.
Mm-hmm.
The alternative to that is like just make more energy and make it really cheap. And what you do is you start to make machines that actually work better and that actually do their jobs better. You're not so much worried about the energy efficiency side of that. I've said this before, but like if Valor is successful, a dishwasher is going to be a machine where you have a dinner plate and you like throw it and the machine catches it and it cleans it and processes it and puts it back in the cabinet, right? That's a good dishwasher. And like, that's very possible for everybody to own today. Or, you know, a washing machine. Like you should be able to just like throw your dirty clothes at something and it comes back folded and clean. Like those are the types of things that technologically are super easy today. They just depend on energy being cheap. So those are kind of two silly examples. There's much more important examples.
When you say that, all I think of is how hard it is going to be to raise my kids to be good, obedient, contributing members of society. The dishes are really important.
Well,
what is that going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could also say that with where we're at today, right? The fact that we have a dishwasher is like also extremely easy compared to 100 years ago when it was all by hand. So as technology moves forward, it gets easier and easier to live and stay alive, right? So survival is easier. And yeah, that's a huge temptation for people to atrophy and to like sit on their laurels and not do anything. So I guarantee you that problem will get worse, right? The problem of like humans sitting on their laurels will get worse. But there's also opportunity in that, because what it means is that your children, and I think about all this time, all the time for my kids, will have the opportunity to have more leverage on the world than anyone before them, right? Like the average person with an iPhone has like the knowledge and leverage that kings have longed for in previous times. And so you have this opportunity to go and do something incredible with that. So you really, what I'm saying is you have to set their heights higher, their sights higher, right? Like set them up to, well, you don't have to do the dishes anymore, but you need to figure out how to like, I don't know, build a flying car, right? Like go do that after dinner. So I don't know exactly what it looks like, but we have to keep raising our sights.
It's so interesting to hear you talk in terms of, you know, the world and what it could be, and how afraid the secular world is to seize that, because
Yep.
it's all conserve, and it,
Yep.
I think, like psychologically or theologically, what's going on there is they see a zero-sum world
Yeah.
that they're the biggest problem in. Like
Yeah.
we're the destroyers. We ruin everything.
Yeah.
And on our side, we're saying, no, we're actually the ones who are trying to wrestle for the blessing of our creator.
Yes.
So let's go get it.
Yeah.
It's a profound separation, a fork in the road.
Yeah. I think that Christians uniquely should recognize the nature of wealth, right? If you're secular, wealth is a really confusing thing. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't make fundamental sense that there's such a thing as new value being created, right? And it's more likely that you're going to think that there's like this much gold in the world and that's a grab to see who can get it, right? This is why China restricted the number of children you could have, right, to one person, right? Only have one kid, because their view of the world is that there's a pie, and if everybody starts having kids, then there's going to be no pie left, right? Whereas Christians recognize that everything we are already in is like the most insane gift that you could possibly imagine, right? Like the fact that we're here, the fact that there are trees, the fact that there's like any gold at all is this 0 to 1 moment of gift, right? From nothing to something. And that there doesn't seem to be a bottom to that, right? There's like no bottom to the amount of like more, you know, you could even say physical gold. Like honestly, there's such an enormous amount of physical gold in the universe, you could never exhaust it, right? But even at a more meta level than that, like there are ways to use resources better, right? So that, you know, 1 ingot of copper turns into, you know, 10,000 times more use than it did 100 years ago. So on both of those dimensions, there's enormous abundance all around us. And the Christian perspective is that the only limiting factor on that is essentially like, are we acting in a moral way, right? Like, are we following God's law? Because if you could imagine I think it's an interesting experiment to think about if mankind hadn't fallen, right? If Adam and Eve had not fallen, and you fast forwarded the 8,000 years from then, what would the world look like? And I think that really what it would look like is that we would not be able to recognize how much more technologically advanced everything was, right? Like I think it's extremely obvious to me that like Adam and Eve would have gotten to smartphones in like 100 years or something like that. right? And then they'd be beyond that and beyond that and beyond that. And really what you're saying there is that like mankind obeying God's law will inevitably lead to abundance and wealth. And it's really us not obeying God's law that's like the limiting gate on that. So as the gospel spreads throughout the world, you can already see this. As the gospel spreads throughout the world, it creates technological abundance. And as it continues to do that, it'll continue to produce more.
Yeah, it's amazing how much even your eschatology comes into nuclear energy. It's
Yes.
like, it's either going to be the thing that people nuke the world with, which was a big fear, and somehow we've managed to continue escaping that.
Yep.
To no, this is literally the thing that can provide us what would seem infinite energy.
Yes.
And you've talked a little bit about how important energy is. You give that little, your fun example.
Yeah.
But like, how would infinite energy affect just today?
Yeah.
Just right now, if you were to turn on the infinite energy switch?
Yeah. It would take a couple years for people to like adjust to it, right? But an example of this is the physical material that goes into building a house should basically be free, right? If you actually trace down, like, why does a steel beam cost money, right? It essentially, at the end of the day, costs energy, right? It costs the energy of running the trucks to mine the iron ore, of shipping the iron ore to a smelter, of powering the smelter, of getting the natural gas or coal or whatever the source is to carbonize it, to run the mills, right? All these things are energy costs. I would also say there are labor costs in those too, right? There are people running those machines. But like the reason that thing costs money is that it costs energy. And free energy would mean like we could build houses for like 10 times cheaper. And over time, you add AI to this, by the way, and that accelerates even more, right? Because maybe an AI can run that machine. Maybe an AI can control the mill output, that sort of thing. So free energy is something that I think is like, it creates a canvas of imagination where the right answer is, I have no idea. The right answer is that's going to be up for the next generation of people to invent what the world looks like with free energy. That's very exciting to me. I was very pumped about that.
Yeah. Okay. So you're building the nuclear reactor. That's going to produce more power. And then you've got consumers who want to buy the power, and it's going to continue to be cheaper. What all is in between you and that consumer that's going to grow with you?
Basically, are you asking what do we have to do in order to get that?
Yeah. So like, what's the infrastructure for distributing power look like? Is it going to be more cables flying through the air? Is it going to be, there's wireless energy now? Like, where's that headed?
I think that the right now how it works is that there are grids, right? There's a couple of big centralized AC grids throughout the United States and throughout the world. And really what you're doing if you're building grid power is that you're setting up an inverter, right? To basically properly match the power output of your energy producing machine to the frequency of the grid. And you're trying to add to that total, or you're trying to reduce from the total impedance actually. But I think that probably what's going to happen over the next couple of decades is that grids are going to get smaller and more resilient, and you will have a generation which is a little bit closer to the point of use. So instead of having these like really, really distributed grids where it's all part of like one thing and it's very fragile, and if something breaks, it could break the whole thing, we will probably separate these out, and there will be a lot of growth. You'll have a lot more energy capacity, right? Because we're all going to use more energy, and there's going to be more to use. And so you're going to add a lot of capacity, and you're going to have these sort of smaller, more resilient grids. So I think that's generally where it's going. The other interesting thing for Valar is that we're also going to produce hydrocarbons, right? So we're actually going to produce synthetic oil and gas. And if you think about it, that is also a form of a grid, right? A oil pipeline in the ground or a diesel pipeline in the ground is sort of like an electrical cable in terms of you're moving energy through it. Actually, you're moving a lot more energy through it than electricity, but that's kind of a separate conversation. But yeah, I think that's generally how it's evolving.
Okay. So you're up to big stuff. Nuclear will seemingly always be a scary thing to people, ever since Chernobyl. Why should people not be afraid. Talk to them, and then just give us your closing thoughts on what you're up to, and who you want to talk to as far as selling the importance of what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of safety, I would point out that nuclear is already the safest form of power generation on Earth already, right? So if you look at all the different forms of power generation, you can look at how much energy they make, and then you can divide that by casualty count, right? So unfortunately, in the real world, everything that makes power kills people, right? This is universally true across every form of power generation. Solar panels kill people, right? People fall off the roof while installing them. Wind power definitely kills people, actually a lot. People die in coal mines, right? People die in natural gas pipeline explosions and turbine explosions, steam explosions, all these different things. So in the real world and physical industry, there is relative danger of different things. And if you take the total power output of nuclear and divide it by casualties, and then you do this for all of the forms of power generation, nuclear is by far the safest form of power generation. It's actually not particularly close. The runner-up is solar, but solar is actually more dangerous per power output than nuclear. It's not even in the same league as natural gas and coal. So that's kind of the status quo, right? Like that's where nuclear is today. Now, I think Valar has the opportunity to go even further, right? And I think that's something that we should do because Valar wants to make a lot more energy, right? So safety is even more important to us because we're going to make so much more. And we have the opportunity to, I think, make nuclear 10 times safer than that, right? So we're going to massively pull away from this sort of like status quo of danger per power. And I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with us, Isaiah. How can people follow your story, keep track of what you guys are up to?
Yeah, big on X, x.com, the everything app. You can follow me there. By the way, like, it's pretty insane what Elon did with purchasing Twitter and turning it into the town square, right? I would definitely encourage young men to be on X. That sounds like a really funny thing to say, but it's actually true. It's sort of become a place for young people to actually be part of a community that traditionally would have been somewhere where they have to sort of be guarded and they have to like understand that the people in charge hate them and hate who they are. That's no longer true. It's actually a place where you can find people of similar beliefs who are also working very hard. And I won't call it quite community because it's not in person, but it's as close as you can get. So join that, follow me there.
Okay, I got one more question.
Yeah.
Because this is a juicy one to me. Is there are people that were really excited about X, and now they're complaining about what happened to X. Why are some people dreading what happened to it? Why did people despair when he first bought it?
Yeah.
And then why are they disappointed now?
Which people are we talking about?
So it was people that were fans of Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And now they're on Twitter and they're saying, this is just not the right kind of place for me.
I think there are probably some people who are unhappy with the level of censorship even still. But honestly, like you could say pretty much whatever you want on there. It's pretty much a wide open court. It's hard to actually get banned from X. So like if you're worried about just like speaking your mind, I don't think that's actually that big of a concern. I haven't seen it at least.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think that you need to recognize that X is sort of like the town square, right? And you have like if you're gonna go sit in the town square and like start talking, it's gonna be a while before anybody's like paying attention to what you're saying, and it's gonna be a while before you like find the people that are interested in hearing what you have to say, and you're interested in hearing what they have to say, because it's a big room. Right. But the nice thing is once you have that, you have like the access to everybody who might want to hear what you have to say. And you have access to hear, what everybody that you care about is saying. So it probably just takes time and takes some investment. But I don't think that we should underestimate the extent to which Elon essentially restored a concept of free speech in the United States. Like it went from conservatives basically could not get the message out on anything. Like even the president of the United States could not talk to his people on X, right? Or on Facebook or on Instagram, or like they basically banned him everywhere. To now we have like a resilient place where you can actually like communicate and coordinate and like get to know people. So I think it's an incredible gift. I'm very grateful to Elon.
Okay. Well, thanks for the advice. Isaiah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks
We
for having me.
appreciate you
It's been
joining
fun.
us.
Yeah.